Here are 6 style ratchets that I think you will need to complete your toolbox and move through your projects even faster. And if you're like, hey man, there's way more than 6 ratchets here on the screen, you're right, glad you're paying attention, but we'll get to that. There are 6 styles total here. I will put links to each one of these products down into the description so that you don't have to hunt around online for them. Starting out with number 1, the most obvious, a standard, straight, regular, whatever you want to call it, normal ratchet. This one has a comfy grip, which is kind of nice. You'll notice when you're buying ratchets, hey, they come in 3 sizes usually: a 1/4 inch drive, a 3/8 drive, which is this one, and a 1/2 inch drive. Most of my work, I use a 3/8 inch drive. Most of my sockets are 3/8 inch. If I'm working on the inside of a car, though, I'm probably going to be working on a 1/4 inch size. Now, this isn't the style I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the drive size. You can see that's much smaller than that right there. And if you're working on heavier equipment, you're obviously going to be using a 1/2 inch like this, or you're going to be using a 3/4 inch or maybe even bigger. So let's get back to the styles of wrenches here. Standard, this is a gear wrench, 90 tooth. Okay, I really like this one. It's a great standard wrench. This is my Milwaukee. This is a very, very good wrench too, super smooth. Moving on from standard ratchets, we're going to get into the extended version or long reach. You're going to need a longer version of a ratchet eventually, whether it be for the clearance or for the leverage that you're going to need. You can only get so much leverage on a short ratchet. The longer the ratchet, the more leverage you can get on it. Here is an extended version, 3/8 inch from Astro, and it's kind of a slim access right here. I really like that. It's a little smaller than most 3/8 ratchets in the shaft here. This is a Tecton 18-inch 3/8 comfort grip ratchet, so I can get even more leverage and more reach on something like this, especially if you're working like from the top of an engine bay and you need to get all the way down to something near the bottom, and the only way to do it is with a long ratchet. Here's a long reach Koken. This is a Japanese brand, and this is a heavy duty ratchet. It's only got, I think, 24 teeth, which means the teeth are big and burly and can handle a whole lot of oomph to them. So this one I really like if I'm working on anything 1/2 inch. This is the one that usually comes out because I'm gonna need the leverage. And I've got some smaller 1/2 inch stuff, but usually if you're working on 1/2 inch, you can see this one's gonna be a lot bigger, a lot more leverage. Usually if you're working on 1/2 inch, you're gonna need the leverage. If I'm working on something that only requires a 10-inch ratchet, then I'm probably working with 3/8 inch tools. The next style I'd like to talk about is pretty common, is flex head. This one, you can see you could get up and over an obstacle, and then you could ratchet it like that, depending on what's in your way. Or you can work them like this, and that's kind of convenient too, or everywhere in between. This one's kind of a free-floating style, a non-locking style. I'll show you right here. This is a locking style flex head from Gear Wrench. So you'd flip that little lever over, and then you can lock it into whatever position, which is nice if you're constantly working in that certain angle all the time to not have to fight the ratchet back and forth itself. And again, another size, another style. Here's another flex head I have that is basically the same size as that gear wrench I just showed you. This is a Job Smart. I believe I picked this one up when I had to do a water pump repair on the side of the road. I believe it was maybe a Tractor Supply company I was near, and I had to pick up a set of tools to work on stuff, and I knew a flex head would come in handy. And one of my bigger flex heads here, this is a Titan locking flex head. I really like Titan ratchets. You're going to see another couple of them here in a minute. I like to grab this one, and it's only a 3/8. This is a big, long one, but only a 3/8 drive. Okay, we're going to talk rotating head ratchets. I love rotating head ratchets. I use them a lot. This is my first one ever, this Milwaukee one, and it allows you to do almost an entire 360 on these things to get to whatever you're working on. And what's really convenient is when you run them straight. Once you get the nut broken loose or the fastener broken loose, then you can rotate this thing all the way straight up and just speed that thing out of there. So this was my first one, and I fell in love with them so much. I ended up getting some smaller ones and some bigger ones. Titan, told you about Titan. This is their 4-inch version, which gets you into some super tight spots. I use this one a lot under the dash of the car, sometimes in real tight spots under the hood, depending on what you're working on, like throttle bodies and stuff. This has gotten me out of quite a few pinches that way. They have a 7-inch version, which is great if you need a little bit extra leverage or a little bit extra reach. So I picked that one up as well. And here's my newest brand of these by Vera. And this is called their Zyklop. And this one actually, I've never seen this before. It locks into different positions using this little tab. And the tab is available on both sides, which is nice when you're working in weird spots and you can't really get to it with both hands. You can just use your finger or whatever can get to it. And this is your reverse thumb wheel up there, reverse and then forward. And like I said, it locks into space. And this is how it punches the socket off. And what's pretty cool is when it's all the way that way, you can't get to that button to push it off. So you push up on the little tab here, and that slides it out. Another cool trick on the Zyklop is it's got this little sleeve on it right here that if you hold it, you can really start going like a driver. That thing's pretty darn slick, and the weight on this thing is significantly more than what you'd expect. These are really nice. So nice that I bought 3/8 and the 1/4 inch. And I do want to show you, I've got the gear wrench set as well. I really like these. They're quite a bit longer. You can see the 3/8 Milwaukee next to the 3/8 gear wrench. So I picked up that one for a little extra reach as well. One more flex head, and this almost kind of falls in its own special category because it is super slim, super tight access. This is by Gear Wrench. It measures in at 1 foot long, and it is a locking flex head. So when you're working in some really close quarters and you got to get around a bend or something like that, you can lock this into place and get just about anywhere. I've got it set up to hold a 1/4 inch socket on it right now, but you pop that out of there and it can take a regular 1/4 inch bit in there as well. So you can run it like a screwdriver or Torx or whatever type of bit you want to put in there. I have used this thing so many times. It has paid for itself 10 times over. I feel like this is one that's got to hit your wish list. Another style ratchet that you're going to need is some type of stubby. This is a tiny little Milwaukee 1/4 inch stubby that I put a little grip on. This thing is great to have in tight quarters, like if you're under the dash or if you're working the interior car, radios, stuff like that. This has really helped me out quite a few times, and it goes one step smaller if you need to run like, they call these gimbals. There's probably 15 other names for them, but this is basically just a wheel you spin. You need like no swing access for the ratchet handle. You just spin it like that. I don't run into where I need one of these very often. The amount of space you'd be working in would be very, very unique. But when you need them and it's the only thing that's going to work for that job, you're going to be very happy you've got one sitting around. Okay, and now we've got the torque wrench. If you've only got one torque wrench, I recommend a 3/8 that can get pretty low and can get pretty high on the torque settings. This is a Husky version. I really like the handle design to adjust it. All you gotta do is pull that collar down and rotate, and it locks into wherever I'm aiming for. Boom, just like that. Torque wrench, if you are doing any type of maintenance work on a vehicle or small engines and you got to set something to a torque setting, you are going to need a torque wrench. Don't in any circumstance use this for a breaker bar unless it's an absolute emergency. If you don't know what a breaker bar is, this here is a breaker bar. It is a non-ratcheting socket holder, basically, with a long bar on it. You use this to get maximum leverage on things, and it doesn't have to use all the teeth in there. It's basically just set straight on that right there on the drive, and it takes all of the grunt right here instead of on the teeth of the ratchet. It's meant for busting lug nuts or exhaust or suspension work, where you need heavy duty leverage and a big socket on the end. That's where a breaker bar comes in handy. Ironically, they're about the same length as a torque wrench, and some people will absolutely ruin their torque wrench if they decide to go heavyweight and try to bust something with it. These are meant for a specific task, and that is the only task you're really supposed to do with them. They come in many different sizes. This is my 3/8. I've got a much larger one that's a 1/2 inch, and I've got a much smaller one that does 1/4 inch when you're doing way down in there in inch pounds. So this will turn any ratchet into a torque wrench. All you got to do is put your ratchet side in there, and this is now a digital torque wrench. Comes in multiple different sizes, tons of different styles and brands, but I like this one. Check it out. Now I've got a flex head style torque wrench. That easy. If you've got a specific brand ratchet or style ratchet that you recommend, let me know down in the comments.
Hey, don't forget to subscribe.
Torque it twisted.